Renting now cheaper than owning in every major U.S. metro area, including Los Angeles.
That's kind of a big deal when you stop and think about it. This is the result of a study by LendingTree, which indeed finds that renting is cheaper than owning a home in every single major metropolitan area in the United States. And this really underlines the unaffordability of the housing market, especially for younger people who are just getting priced out of the American dream. In other words, home ownership. So this study finds that homeowners pay about 37% more per month than renters, which is to say monthly mortgage costs can run about $550 more than monthly rents, or on an annual basis, you'd be paying about $6,500 more per year than a renter. And in cities like LA, San Francisco, New York, a mortgage holder can pay as much as $1,500 more per month than a renter. And in case you need some context there, the median rent nationwide is now about $1,500, compared with a median monthly mortgage payment that tops $2,000. Typically here in Southern California, it's going to be a good deal higher than that. This difference is a key reason that millions of Americans now say they just simply cannot afford a home and can't imagine a circumstance in which they can.
What we see here now is LendingTree came out with a study, and they're basically saying that in 1,000 largest U.S. metropolitan areas, renting costs less than owning a home with a mortgage. I feel that. It says on average, homeowners with a mortgage pay about 36.9% more per month than renters nationwide. We're contributing that to the cost of housing, right? Housing is too expensive. Young people can't get these houses because the housing prices is crazy high. So people go to renting. Then what you have is I'd rather rent, because now if I'm looking at renting, all I gotta do is pay for the rent and my utilities. I don't have to go through the stress of owning a house. If you own a house, you know that it is very stressful owning a house, because why? You're on the hook for everything. That's why you start to see the younger generation saying, you know what? I'd rather rent, because if something broke, call the landlord. I'm not responsible for that anymore. As a person that lives in a house, obviously owns houses and stuff like that. I remember when I first bought my first house, I was like, damn, I'm responsible for everything. And then all those fees and things that you have to pay, HOA, this, it adds up. So what we have here is a younger generation being smart and saying, you know what? I'd rather rent than buy a house. I even believe that when the prices do come down from housing, I still think people are going to stay renting, because renting just makes sense. And if you want to go to another place, you can. You're not bogged down by trying to sell your place. You're not getting hit with all of these fees and everything like that. So what I always tell people is go to where you can afford. See, a lot of people want to live in a certain area and just want to live there no matter what. Go to a place where you can get a job and where you can afford to live. If you understand that concept, you will always have money in your pocket. But if you're thinking about buying a house, don't just look at the mortgage. Look at all the other fees. When I first bought my house in Las Vegas, it was a custom built house. Didn't look at all the fees. I was excited to buy the house. You know, you're coming from the hood. You're coming from, being able to buy a house. That's like the American dream. I'm going to buy a house. This is mine. But then you forget about all the other fees. Then you forget about landscaping, HOA. Obviously you got utilities, but then you got this tax, that tax, this tax. It becomes overwhelming. And I think when you see the younger generation, they're like, I don't want to deal with all that. Especially when you see, I live in California, and we know that renting is cheaper than buying a house, especially right now. What you see in California is you see a lot of property tax hikes. So imagine if you own the place, now you got to pay for the property tax. Well, Marcus, if you don't own the place, but then they can raise the property tax, but then they'll raise the rents, find somewhere else to live. What we see from these younger generations, they're not attached to where they live. If I live in this apartment unit and the price is too high, I'm going to find another place. That's what they're doing. What we're seeing is now the American dream of owning a home and that building your wealth is over. The generations now don't look at owning a home as something as prosperous, something as that you have to do. Whereas my generation, we was like, man, if you own a home, that's the pinnacle. Not this generation. These generations now are like, look, where can I live at safe, that fits my pocketbook, and I'm good, and I don't have to fix anything. I know if I pay for this, everything else is covered. I give it to this young generation. Even if the prices come down on the houses, which they won't come down to where it's super duper affordable, I still think a lot of people will continue renting. It's because they don't have anything to worry about. I pay my rent. If something breaks, then it gets fixed by the landlord. I'm good. So I definitely understand it. I see why it's cheaper, but I also understand why people want to continue to rent, because owning a house is not what it's cracked up to be.
The administration is well aware of this problem and is pondering various ways to make homes more affordable. And one such idea is steering people into 50-year mortgages as opposed to the more traditional 30-year mortgage. And in terms of a monthly payment, a 50-year mortgage clearly is going to have a lower monthly payment than a 30-year mortgage. But the danger here is you'll be saddled with debt for probably the rest of your natural life, and you'll end up paying far more in interest under a 50-year loan than you would under a 30-year loan. So are we any closer to homes becoming more affordable? Not a chance.
I know a lot of young people who
I think the reason why the homes are not going to be affordable right now, and people are trying to blame it on Trump, blah, 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 but it has nothing to do with Trump. The reason why houses are still high is because of a couple of reasons. One, if you live in California, you know how hard it is to get permits, the zoning, regulations, all of that is ridiculously long, right? Two, I blame it on the baby boomers. There's a lot of baby boomers right now sitting on a lot of equity, and they're waiting to get the maximum amount of equity until in order for them to move. But in order to make the boomers move and make them sell their current houses, we need more housing. I remember when I used to live in Las Vegas, and I was living there before like the craziness how it is now. The reason why homes were very affordable in Las Vegas is because they were building homes. They kept building, kept building, kept building. So these builders that had inventory now knew I have to give it off as a good price. If not, it would be stale. This is what needs to happen in places like California, Chicago, all these places where you have these boomers living, and they're holding their house is their goose egg. So instead of them selling their house and making the amount of money that they make, they are being greedy and they're staying in their home. So they're the ones that have to move. In order to make the boomers move, we need more housing production. This has nothing to do with the interest rates. It has nothing to do with Trump. Because if we lower the interest rates, all that's going to do is make the housing higher, pricing higher. We need to have people moving. We need to have more houses being built, because when there's more houses being built, if you have a house now, you're looking like, I need to sell before that's built because that's my competition. I just don't like it when people try to say, well, it's Trump, the interest rates. It has nothing to do with that. We need more homes being built, and we need these states that have all this land to ease up on the permits and let building get done quickly.
say that they have been priced out of the housing market, don't want to play the ownership game any longer, and instead are taking that kind of money and investing it in the stock market and other financial tools, and so far some have said they're happy with their investments.
Sure, but it's a roll of the dice. Obviously, on a short-term basis, if you're investing that money, well, you're hoping that the strong market, and we've had a very strong stock market for the past few years, it'll keep working in your favor. The problem there is, until you enter the housing market, you're not building equity. Equity is the name of the game when it comes to home ownership, because you're now building up a nest egg for the future. And if you can pay off your mortgage before your retirement, then you're in really good shape, because then you've got flexibility, financially speaking, for handling all the other things that might come up. A large part of that is going to be healthcare once you.
Equity is great in a house. That I feel like that was the old way, right? Because think about it. If a house is worth $500,000 right now, will it be worth $3 million by the time you retire? Probably not, right? It's not gonna jump astronomically like that. What we see is with the young people, they're like, you know what? I'd rather put this money into investing. It's because it's less stress. I don't have to worry about my money going anywhere as far as me paying for a water heater, me paying for this, me paying for this, me paying for this. It's funny when people talk about equity. Equity only works when you're not paying for it. So investment properties, when you're owning the investment properties, you technically are not spending your hard-earned money on the purchase of the property or on the loan because you have tenants. That's where it makes sense. As far as a personal home, I'm kind of 50-50 on it. Actually, I'm really probably leaning more as a person that owns a personal home. I wouldn't mind renting because if something happens, then cool. But I don't mind owning properties because I'm not paying for my equity. So when I do sell, I really made a lot of money off the equity because I really didn't invest much into it. It's all depending on what you do. I believe, like I said, the old American dream is, oh, get a house, own a house, then sell it later. You'll get the equity. But how much money did you have to pay in order to get that equity? That's what I'm saying. See, I understand it, but I feel like owning properties, equity makes sense. But your own personal property, it's all about where you want to live. I think we need to stop looking at owning a property for ourselves as an investment because it really isn't.
Become older, but not to worry because you'll have your Trump account to fall back on.
Okay. All right, see what you did there. Okay.
A lot of my friends are like, all right, so we having kids this year because that's a guaranteed $1,000 for my.
Right.
And I think it's a conversation people are starting to have.
Absolutely. And isn't it interesting that once it was a given, I'd have kids, I'll own a home. That was the American dream. And now, as you correctly point out, people are having conversations about all of the above.
The American dream is not what it used to be. It changed. And that's what it's supposed to be. The American dream was I'm going to have a house with a white picket fence and I'm going to have 2 or 3 kids. I'm going to have a great life and not going to be stressful. Everything's cheap. That was the American dream. The American dream isn't that anymore. American dream is getting investments, living a good life, but off of your investments, not working to death, stacking up your brand. But these young generations not pushing to buy a house because I believe they're just smarter than the older generation and see from their parents that owning a house isn't it. Right? I'd rather have this money and put into investments and live off those investments. I think that's what it is. The American dream has changed and there's nothing wrong with that. But as a person, like I said, own houses, own properties. Yeah, I wouldn't really want to own a personal house. That's cool. I don't mind renting, but I would love to own a bunch of rental properties and have those pay my rent that I'm currently staying at. And also too, I'm not tied to a place. I can leave and go to a different place, me and my family if we wanted to. So it's all about doing what's best for you, okay? Let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit the notification bell to see the new videos coming out. Also, too, make sure you join the Go Getter Patreon. Link is in the bio. No Filter Morning Show coming very soon. Can't wait to hit you guys every day with that. But I just appreciate you guys' support, and I'm just going to keep it rocking, keep it going. I'm out.